AGC of America, considers it basically two phases. There's the recruitment side, and then, of course, there's the training side. As Rick just mentioned, one challenge the construction industry has, and I wouldn't say it's a new challenge, but it's trying to get individuals into the construction industry, particularly now where a lot of parents, most parents perhaps, are encouraging their children to go to college, which is great, but college not for everybody. So I think there's that challenge with perceptions about the construction industry. Obviously, it is a hard industry. People need to work hard in the industry in order to succeed. But it's not just a job, it really is a career path for anyone who chooses it. But there are challenges, getting individuals to see that these are well-paying jobs, jobs you can support a family on, jobs that can last an entire career. So that's one aspect of it, is the recruitment and to highlight the opportunities for individuals to come into the construction industry. And again, not a new challenge, but I would say even a greater challenge. And of course, as unemployment goes down, once again, a good thing, but there's obviously a lot of competing industries, competing with construction, competing with all aspects of transportation for workers. So the recruitment side, AGC of America is trying to do our part, but even more importantly, working with anybody and everybody in the industry. This is not an issue we're going to solve, or I would say anyone in the room will solve on their own. So we've developed a couple things that hopefully augment other efforts in the construction arena. We developed some template websites for some of our chapters. I mentioned we have 93 chapters around the country. Some template websites, again, focused on the recruiting side of construction to help our chapters who are thinking about these issues to create a website, particularly highlighting the industry, whether it's to a high school student or a veteran coming out of the military or somebody looking for a career change, to take a look at the construction industry and highlighting those positive aspects. We've also partnered with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation Hiring Our Heroes program. Again, this is particularly focused with veterans. Veterans have so many wonderful skills that I think would benefit any industry, but trying to convert or translate those skills from the military into the civilian workforce, certainly a challenge for almost all of them. So this is a program not construction specific, but develop some tools to help create resumes, to help translate some of those military occupational skills into the private sector, and then also facilitate some job fairs around the country, again, focused on military and their spouses. Another program we work with is an organization called NCCER, National Construction Education Research. That might work. They go by the acronym NCCER, but they're a good partner of AGC of America's and others in the construction space, and they focus a great deal on workforce recruitment, workforce development. So I would encourage anyone to take a look at that organization as well. They have a program called Build Your Future. Again, really highlights the skilled trades, craftspeople in the construction industry, highlighting what they do, to be a carpenter, to be a pipe fitter, et cetera. The training that goes into that, the salaries that are often associated with those skills, again, to really hone in on these careers that may not be the initial thought of somebody, but really trying to get it in front of to anybody to bring them further into the construction industry. I would say for this issue, we're a national organization with local chapters. A lot of these issues are handled on the local level. Each area is different, of course, whether it's our chapters or any of the areas where you all live. So many of our chapters have their own recruitment programs. They have their own apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship programs, training programs, et cetera. So there's lots of good programs out there. But and I think one of the points of the transportation centers and forums like this is to not reinvent the wheel and to really share this information that these opportunities exist out there. But for somebody who's not from the transportation arena, the trucking arena, the construction arena, they don't even know where to start. So I think we're just trying to work collaboratively to connect those dots.
Thanks for those comments. Wayne, looks like you want to chime in.
Well, I'll add one comment to this, because I thought that was a great feedback. And in our field, in our profession, in our business, We do the traditional kinds of things that I think many companies probably get involved in at the pre-college level. It's Lego robotics, it's introductions through high school classes to the program. And it's done not just through the company, but through the individual connections of the people of the firm. They're the ones that are going out and making those connections. We have an internship program that I think is fairly extensive and unique. We'll talk about that maybe a little bit later. But I wanted to kind of focus on the post-employment, because I think that's something that sometimes is overlooked, and I think it's one of the great elements of what we try to bring or integrate into our work. We have what we call a professor partner program in our firm, where we try to bring professors who are employed, but during either their sabbaticals or during extra time that they might have in their schedules. Oftentimes their universities will allow them to practice or to interface with professionals in the private field. We bring those people in for, again, sabbaticals or individual periods of time to provide guidance to our own staff, sort of a postgraduate advisory program, to keep us apprised of what's going on and what's emerging in this fast-changing field, and to also to give them some perspective and sort of act as that bridge to how some of those things that we're talking about in the colleges and universities are actually being translated into practice in the field.
Okay. Thank you. Marcia?
So at WTS, we are focusing on the complete career cycle. And I think one of the most interesting programs that we have going on right now is a program called Transportation U DC Summit. And we bring a group of mentors and mentees from all over the country into Washington for a transportation boot camp. And we partner with various universities to provide a program for these young girls. Most of them are young women, juniors and seniors in high school. But to give you an example of one of the most memorable moments for me is one of our very first Transportation UDC Summits, and exposing these young women to ideas and thoughts and careers that they never ever even dreamt about. We did a challenge program on accessibility, and each of these girls were given a, they were either deaf, we had earplugs in them, they were blind, their eyes were covered, or they were in wheelchairs. And they all had to maneuver around the city with these disabilities. And there was one group of 3 that were in wheelchairs, and as we were getting finished the day doing this challenge project, they went to the metro station and the elevators weren't working. They missed the second half of the day, waiting for their wheelchairs to be able to enter into an elevator. We have heard from the 3 girls that were stuck in the wheelchairs because it was so, they had absolutely no comprehension that someone would have to wait in a dark hallway for an elevator to continue on their life. One of these girls is going on now to graduate school, and it's her focus to be able to address accessibility all over the country. We have to expose these young people. I focus on women. WTS can't save the world. We're just focusing on one woman at a time. But we're very focused on getting these young women exposed to careers that they never even dreamt were out there and were available for women. And as far as that other end of the career cycle, we are working to build best practices. If I had a quarter for every private company that came to me and said, how are we going to close this gap with women, I'd have a balanced budget. Actually, 14 was a balanced budget. 15 might be a little stretch. That's why we need to talk. We have, companies coming to us all the time asking, how do I get more women on my board? Where do I find them? How is it that I'm going to find these women so I can have a diverse pool to pull from. So, it is a focus around the country, and my concern is everyone's sitting in their own little silos trying to figure it out. So one of the things that we're focusing on at WTS is collecting that research, collecting that data, so that everyone isn't out trying to figure out the same answer. And we believe we are on the path to some of those answers, but that might be later on in the discussion.
Well, since Marsha's doing such a great job talking about women in management positions, I'm going to, again, defer to the driver population. And we have two huge issues. First of all, you can't become a driver and drive interstate until minimum 21, but most insurance companies want you to have 2 years experience, so 23 years old. So going into elementary schools and high schools is just out of the question. And secondly, we have a huge image problem. And thank you, Rick, for saying, how many of you want your children to grow up to be a truck driver? Because we have a huge image problem, okay? People think of truck drivers as having this as a second career, or it's because they can't do anything else. They think that drivers are, the image is huge. So what we're doing in the area of workforce development, I'm gonna tell you, is basically attacking that image. So how do we get young girls to say, you know what? Someday I want to grow up and drive a truck, just like my mom or my dad. So some of the things that we're doing, and I'm really proud of this one, is we developed a transportation patch for the Girl Scouts. They didn't have one. Boy Scouts had a transportation patch and Girl Scouts didn't. So we developed the curriculum, we piloted it in Chicago, and 84 girls about a month ago earned their first transportation patch. And we're doing that all over the country. In fact, we're even doing one in Canada, and it's called Girl Guides. So I'm very proud of that, to introduce girls to careers in transportation. I want a doll. I want a Barbie doll or something, some kind of doll that drives a truck. I want a game where kids can choose and say, how do I get this from point A to point B, and what's the best route, and do I want to use trucks, whatever. We need to introduce young children to careers in transportation, but more importantly, we need to let girls know that they can do the job. So we've got some flyers that we give out when parents ask for that. The Girl Scout patch, I think, is amazing. We have our salute to the women behind the wheel. And the Mid-America Trucking Show in Louisville, Kentucky is the largest truck show in the world. And so that last day of the show, we honor all female drivers. We give them all red shirts. Our color is red. We stay away from pink. These are truck drivers. So we give them the power color red, and then we have a speaker. We've had Ann Farrell, FMCSA. We've had Debbie Hersman speak. We bring in speakers who thank them for what they're doing. Last year we had 7 women with 4 million miles. Now, if any of you have any idea what it takes to drive 1 million miles, that's at minimum of 10 years. So these 7 women have been driving 40 years. All right, that's a lot. 40 years ago, these women weren't visible. I mean, you just didn't see them out there. So we need to bring these women out there, applaud them for what they've been doing, make them visible. We had a female driver on the Ricky Lake show. She actually taught Ricky Lake how to drive a truck in the parking lot, thank God. We had a driver featured in Oprah magazine about a year ago, which was awesome. She was an African-American owner-operator. So our biggest issue is, how do we get our drivers out and so that young girls can see that and say, you know what, maybe someday I can do that. So image, I guess, is my big goal.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment on that. I do a lot of work with companies in the area of educating their workforce, and inevitably, because I came out of the supply chain world, we'll talk about transportation. 75 to 80% of all freight in this country moves on a truck, whether it comes off of a ship into a port, sometimes a slow port, and then onto the rail system and into the transportation system. And we need qualified drivers, and we need to professionalize that job. I know when I ran Kraft's supply chain, billions of dollars of freight expense, and you're always thinking about, how do I lower my transportation expense by 10%? It's $200 million or whatever the numbers are. It's huge numbers. It's the cost of a small company. But yet, when you look at what that job entails each and every day, the carriers that are out there that you talk to can add drivers right now if they had the people to do it. So we got to make it easier. We got to make it professional. We have to pay them more, and we got to make their life easier. Don't go to a distribution center and because you're 10 minutes late, have somebody say, well, you got to wait 8 hours. That productivity is just gone and never received back. And so smart transportation folks and smart logistics people in that stream of how we move product are getting it and figuring out ways to make it a lot easier for that driver to be a professional, well-relished element of the supply chain, because it has to be that way. And it's beginning to get there in some industries. It's a hard job when you think about what they have to do. So we've got to figure out a way to do that. Baby boomers are beginning to retire. A lot of them are truck drivers, and we're going to have an influx of a need for driver capacity in this country, and it just drives the numbers up, and you can all review all those numbers. So in our organization, we try to educate people about that, and educate people, we call it dorm living to assisted living. When you're a student and somehow you stumble across this great field of logistics and supply chain management and you find yourself inside that industry, we've got to catch you as a professional society, introduce you to the tools and content and developmental opportunities that are available to you from the time you're a student till the time you're ready to give back and come to an organization like TRB or our organization and be a mentor or teach people and give them the experiences, the benefit of our experience that we had in this industry. So it's fascinating to see how rapidly it's come from a cost to be managed to a true competitive advantage in global business today. And transportation remains such a huge part of that. Our logistics expense in the United States alone is about $1.4 trillion. Of that, transportation remains the largest component at about $900 billion. So it's a lot of dollars, and it's a lot of activity that we represent within the economy. So it's a big number. I'm so happy to see these 5 workforce centers establish themselves, because like Michael's organization, we have chapters around the world. We call them roundtables, and it's where local logistics and supply chain professionals meet in a geographically based arena to connect with their community around issues that they have and how do they promote logistics and supply chain management through our membership. So we have them where these workforce centers are, and we can connect industry to the workforce centers to try to help bring them together and develop that activity.
Okay, thank you all for some great information. I want to sort of pick up a little bit more on